The USS Horizon drifted silently through the dark void of space, its metal hull gleaming under the distant light of the Kepler 442 star system. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge, watching the planet below through the main view screen. The world looked peaceful from orbit, covered in swirling clouds and vast oceans that reminded him of Earth. Dr. Amanda Clark hurried onto the bridge, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. She had been the chief science officer for 3 years, and Jake had never seen her this excited. Her short brown hair was messy from hours of work, and her eyes sparkled with discovery. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, placing the tablet on the command console. "We're picking up energy readings from the surface that don't match anything natural." Jake leaned forward to study the data. The readings showed organized patterns, geometric shapes that nature rarely created. "How sure are you that these aren't just mineral formations?" "Very sure," Amanda replied. "The patterns are too regular, too planned. There's definitely something artificial down there." Ryan Peters joined them from his station at the back of the bridge. As the ship's xenobiologist, he specialized in studying alien life forms. His tall frame moved with quiet confidence as he approached the captain. "The atmospheric scans show the planet can support human life," he said. Oxygen levels are good. Gravity is close to Earth normal." Lisa Morgan looked up from her communications console. She was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail. "Captain, I'm not detecting any radio signals or active technology. If there's a civilization down there, they're either very quiet or not using electronics." Jake nodded slowly. In his 15 years of space exploration, he had learned to trust his team's expertise. They had found many dead worlds, but few that showed signs of advanced civilization. "What's your recommendation, Dr. Clark?" "We need to send a landing party," she said without hesitation. "This could be our first contact with alien architecture. The scientific value alone would justify the mission." "Agreed," Jake said. He turned to his intercom. "Commander Martinez to the bridge." Steve Martinez arrived within minutes. He was a solid man in his 40s, with graying hair and the steady demeanor of someone who had seen combat. As the ship's second-in-command, he often led away missions. When the captain needed to stay with the ship, "Steve, we're looking at a possible first contact situation," Jake explained. "I want you to take a team down to investigate these energy readings." Steve studied the data on the tablet. "What kind of resistance should we expect?" "Unknown," Amanda said. "The planet appears lifeless from our scans, but the structures suggest an advanced civilization once lived there." "I'll take Adams for security," Steve said, referring to Tony Adams, their chief security officer. "And I'd like Dr. Clark and Peters on the team for the scientific analysis." Jake approved the team selection. Tony Adams was a former Marine who had joined the exploration service after his military career. He was shorter than Steve, but built like a tank, with muscles that came from years of physical training. His job was to keep the science team safe while they worked. Patricia White, the ship's engineer, volunteered to join the landing party. She was a practical woman who could fix anything mechanical and had a talent for improvising solutions with limited resources. Her red hair was always covered by a work cap, and her hands usually had grease stains from her latest project. Danny Brooks, their pilot, would fly the shuttle down to the surface. He was a quiet man who spoke more with his hands than his mouth, but he could land a shuttle in a hurricane if needed. His calm personality made him perfect for dangerous missions. The landing party gathered in the shuttle bay 2 hours later. They wore standard exploration suits equipped with life support systems and emergency beacons. Each team member carried scientific equipment suited to their specialty. "Remember, this is a peaceful mission," Steve told the group as they boarded the shuttle. "We're here to observe and document, not to disturb anything we find." The shuttle launched smoothly from the Horizon's bay. Danny guided them through the planet's atmosphere with skill, avoiding the worst of the storm systems. Through the viewports, they could see the surface approaching rapidly. The landing site was a flat plain surrounded by low hills. As they descended, the energy readings grew stronger. Amanda watched her instruments with growing excitement. "The source is definitely underground," she reported. Maybe half a kilometer from our landing point? Danny set the shuttle down gently on the rocky surface. The team waited while the atmospheric processors confirmed the air was safe to breathe. Then the shuttle doors opened and they stepped onto an alien world. The landscape was barren, but not hostile. Strange plants grew in patches across the ground, their purple leaves swaying in the gentle breeze. The sky was a pale green color, and 2 small moons hung visible in the daylight. "This way," Amanda said, consulting her scanner. She led them toward a cluster of large rocks that didn't look quite natural. As they got closer, it became clear that the rocks were actually carved stone, worn smooth by centuries of wind and weather. "These are definitely artificial," Ryan said, running his hand along the smooth surface. "The craftsmanship is incredible." They found the entrance to the underground complex behind a fallen stone slab. Tony went first, his weapon ready, followed by the others. Emergency lights on their suits illuminated a corridor that stretched into darkness. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change in the moving light. Patricia took photos while Amanda recorded everything with her scanner. The corridor sloped downward, leading them deeper into the planet's crust. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached a vast underground chamber. Their lights revealed crystalline structures that rose from the floor like frozen trees. The crystals pulsed with a faint blue light, creating shadows that danced across the walls. "My God," Amanda whispered. "This is beautiful." The chamber was huge, bigger than anything they had expected. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them. More corridors led off in different directions, suggesting this was just the beginning of a much larger complex. Ryan approached one of the crystal formations carefully. "These aren't natural crystals," he said. "They've been shaped, cultivated somehow." Steve checked his communication device. "Horizon, this is landing party. We found extensive underground structures. Request permission to continue exploration." Captain Sullivan's voice crackled through the static. "Permission granted, Commander. But stay in contact and don't take any unnecessary risks." They moved deeper into the complex, following Amanda's energy readings. The crystalline structures grew larger and more complex as they progressed. Some of them contained what looked like preserved specimens, creatures unlike anything in Earth's fossil record. "The energy readings are getting stronger," Amanda reported. "Whatever's generating them is still active after all this time." They reached another chamber, this one filled with what appeared to be machinery. The devices were inactive, but their alien design suggested technology far beyond human understanding. Patricia studied them with professional interest, trying to understand their purpose. "These look like control systems," she said, "but I can't figure out what they were designed to control." Lisa held up her scanner. "I'm detecting faint electromagnetic signals, very weak, but they're definitely there." The signals led them to a sealed doorway, marked with symbols that seemed more urgent than the decorative writing they had seen elsewhere. The door was massive, made of the same crystalline material as the structures around them. "Should we try to open it?" Amanda asked. Steve considered the question carefully. "The energy readings are strongest behind this door. If we're going to find answers, they're probably in there." Patricia studied the door's mechanism. "I think I can figure out how to open it," she said. "But once we do, we might not be able to close it again." "Do it," Steve decided. Patricia worked for several minutes, connecting her portable power unit to what appeared to be the door's activation system. The crystals in the door began to glow brighter, and machinery hidden in the walls started to hum with power. With a sound like breaking glass, the door began to open. Cold air rushed out, carrying a scent that reminded them of metal and electricity. Beyond the doorway, they could see another chamber, this one filled with a different kind of light. They stepped through the opening cautiously. This chamber was different from the others, older somehow. The walls were covered in more of the shifting symbols, but these seemed to tell a story. Ryan began photographing them systematically. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform surrounded by more crystalline structures. These crystals were different, darker, and they pulsed with a rhythm that reminded the team of a heartbeat. The energy source is definitely here, Amanda said, her voice filled with scientific excitement. But I'm reading something else too. Biological signatures. Before anyone could respond, the crystals around the platform began to glow brighter. The humming sound grew louder, and the air in the chamber started to vibrate with power. I think we just activated something, Patricia said. Backing away from the platform, the biological signatures on Amanda's scanner grew stronger. Something large was moving behind the crystals, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The creature that rose from the crystal platform was massive beyond comprehension. It stood over 30 feet tall, its body covered in thick, armor-like scales that glistened with a wet sheen. Multiple arms sprouted from its torso, each ending in claws that could slice through metal. Its head was elongated and filled with rows of teeth that dripped with acidic saliva. The most terrifying feature was its eyes, which glowed with an intelligence that spoke of cunning and cruelty. Steve Martinez shouted orders to his team as they scrambled backward toward the entrance. Move! 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 The creature's head turned toward them, and a sound like grinding metal filled the chamber. It was laughing. Tony Adams positioned himself between the creature and the science team, his weapon raised. He fired several shots at the beast, but the energy bolts bounced harmlessly off its armored hide. Weapons are useless, he yelled. The creature moved with surprising speed for something so large. It bounded across the chamber in 3 massive leaps, its claws scraping against the stone floor. Amanda Clark ran as fast as she could, her scientific equipment forgotten in the panic. Behind her, she could hear the creature's breathing, which sounded like steam escaping from a boiler. Ryan Peters helped Lisa Morgan when she stumbled on the uneven floor. The communications specialist was trying to contact the ship, but interference from the underground complex was blocking her signal. I can't reach the horizon, she gasped as they ran. Patricia White was the last to reach the doorway. She turned to see the creature right behind her, its massive form filling the chamber. One of its arms swung down, and she barely rolled out of the way as claws raked the stone where she had been standing. The impact sent chips of rock flying through the air. The team burst through the doorway and into the corridor beyond. Steve slammed his fist against the door controls, hoping to seal the chamber, but nothing happened. The creature's roar echoed through the tunnels as it followed them. The door mechanism is broken, Patricia shouted over the noise. We activated something we can't turn off. They ran through the winding corridors, their emergency lights casting wild shadows on the walls. The creature's footsteps shook the ground behind them, and they could hear it tearing through the crystalline structures they had admired. Just minutes before, Danny Brooks met them at the entrance to the underground complex. He had heard the commotion and come to investigate. What the hell is that thing? He asked when he saw the creature emerging from the depths. Questions later, running now, Steve replied, pushing the pilot toward the shuttle. The team reached the surface just as the creature broke through the entrance. In the daylight, it looked even more terrifying. Its scales reflected the pale green sky, and its multiple arms moved independently. Testing the air like a hunter tracking prey, they ran across the rocky plain toward their shuttle. But the creature was faster. It moved with the fluid grace of a predator, covering ground in massive strides. Lisa stumbled again, and this time Ryan had to carry her to keep up with the group. Danny reached the shuttle first and began the emergency startup sequence. The engines whined to life as the others piled through the doors. Steve was the last to board, firing his weapon at the creature to buy them precious seconds. The shuttle lifted off just as the creature reached their landing site. One of its arms stretched up toward them, claws scraping against the shuttle's hull. Danny pushed the engines to maximum power, and they shot upward into the atmosphere. Horizon, this is landing party, Steve gasped into his communicator. We have a code red situation. Hostile alien life form, extremely dangerous. Captain Sullivan's voice came through clearly now that they were above the interference. Understood, Commander. Are you injured? No casualties, but we've awakened something that should have stayed asleep, Steve replied. Request immediate pickup and prepare for emergency departure? Back on the horizon, Dr. Amanda Clark sat in the science lab, reviewing the data they had collected before the creature attacked. Her hands shook as she worked, the memory of those glowing eyes still fresh in her mind. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered to herself. Ryan Peters joined her, bringing cups of coffee for both of them. "What doesn't make sense?" he asked. "The energy readings," Amanda said, pointing to her screen. "That creature was in some kind of stasis, but the power systems keeping it contained were failing. We didn't wake it up by opening the door. It was already waking up. So we just had bad timing? Maybe, or maybe something else is going on." Amanda pulled up another set of readings. "Look at this. The biological signatures I detected weren't just from the creature. There are others similar, but smaller." Ryan studied the data with growing concern. "How many others?" "I don't know. The scanning equipment couldn't penetrate deep enough into the complex, but Ryan, I think we only met one of them." In the ship's communication center, Lisa Morgan was trying to boost their signal strength to reach Earth Command. The interference from the planet was still affecting their systems, but she was determined to send a warning about what they had discovered. "Any luck?" asked Danny Brooks as he entered the communication center. "Some," Lisa replied. "I'm picking up something strange, though. There are signals coming from the planet's surface, but they're not from our equipment." Danny frowned. "What kind of signals?" "Data transmissions, complex ones. It's like something down there is broadcasting information, but I can't decode it." Meanwhile, Patricia White was in the engineering section, checking the shuttle for damage from their encounter with the creature. The hull showed deep scratches where the beast's claws had made contact, but the structural integrity was intact. "We got lucky," she told Tony Adams as he helped her with the inspection. "A few more seconds and that thing would have torn us apart." Tony nodded grimly. "I fought a lot of things in my time, but nothing like that. My weapons were completely useless against it." "What do you think it was?" Patricia asked. "A predator," Tony said simply. "But not just any predator. That thing was intelligent. It knew we were there, it knew we were afraid, and it enjoyed it." Captain Sullivan called a meeting in the main conference room. The entire landing party gathered around the table, their faces serious. "I need a full report," he said. "What exactly did we encounter down there?" Steve Martinez spoke first, describing their exploration of the underground complex and the moment they opened the sealed chamber. Amanda Clark followed with her scientific analysis, explaining the energy readings and the biological signatures they had detected. "The creature appears to be some kind of apex predator," she concluded, "but the technology surrounding it suggests it was contained by the planet's previous inhabitants." "Previous inhabitants?" Sullivan asked. "The complex is definitely alien in origin," Ryan Peters added. "The architecture, the symbols, the crystalline technology, all of it points to an advanced civilization that once lived on this planet. And they built a prison for this thing," Lisa Morgan said. "The question is, why didn't they just kill it?" The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. If an advanced alien civilization had chosen to contain the creature rather than destroy it, what did that say about the beast's capabilities? "There's something else," Amanda said quietly. "The data suggests there are more of these creatures down there. The one we encountered might not be alone." Sullivan made his decision quickly. "We're leaving this system immediately. I'm not going to risk my crew against something that dangerous." "But Captain," Amanda protested, "the scientific value of this discovery is enormous. We can't just walk away." "We can and we will," Sullivan replied firmly. "Our mission is exploration, not suicide." As the horizon prepared to depart, the signals from the planet's surface grew stronger. Unknown to the human crew, ancient monitoring systems were recording everything that had happened. The awakening of the creature had triggered automated broadcasts that were already spreading across the galaxy. On distant worlds, beings who had forgotten the old stories began to remember. The name that had been whispered in fear for millennia was spoken again. The devourer was awake and the galaxy trembled at the news, but something else was being broadcast along with the warnings. The monitoring systems had recorded not just the creature's awakening, but the humans' response to it. For the first time in galactic history, a species had encountered the Devourer and lived to tell about it. The ancient systems didn't know what to make of this new information. In all their databases, every encounter with the Devourer had ended the same way. Until now, the USS Horizon jumped to hyperspace, leaving the planet and its terrible secrets behind. But the story of their encounter was just beginning to spread across the stars. The USS Horizon hung in space 3 days away from the planet, but Captain Sullivan had ordered a stop to their departure. The crew was restless, and the science team was practically vibrating with frustrated energy. Dr. Amanda Clark had been working around the clock, analyzing every piece of data they had collected from the underground complex. "Captain, we can't just leave," she said, for the 100th time as she stood in his ready room. "This discovery could change everything we know about galactic history." Sullivan looked tired. He had been wrestling with the decision ever since they left the planet. "Amanda, that thing nearly killed your entire team. I won't risk more lives for scientific curiosity." "But we learned something important during our escape," she insisted. "The creature didn't just attack randomly. It was hunting us, studying us. It showed intelligence and strategy. That makes it more dangerous, not less." Amanda pulled up her data on the room's display screen. "Look at this. The biological scans I took show that the creature has specific metabolic needs. It's not some unstoppable force of nature. It's an animal, a very dangerous animal, but still just an animal." Meanwhile, in the ship's galley, Bobby Chun was preparing lunch for the crew. He had been assigned to the Horizon not as a chef, but as a food specialist responsible for long-term nutrition during extended missions. His background in biochemistry made him uniquely qualified to understand how different species processed nutrients. "Hey, Bobby," called Dr. Kevin Thompson as he entered the galley. The marine biologist had been studying the creature's behavior patterns from the recorded data. "Can I ask you something weird?" "Shoot," Bobby replied, not looking up from his food preparation. "That thing down there, the way it moved, the way it hunted, it reminded me of something I've seen before." Bobby stopped chopping vegetables and looked at Kevin with interest. "What kind of something?" "A predator that's been isolated for too long. Like a shark that's been living in a cave system. It becomes more aggressive, more focused on hunting because that's all it knows how to do." Bobby considered this. "You think it's been trapped down there for a long time?" "I think it's been trapped down there for so long that hunting is the only thing it remembers how to do. But here's the interesting part. Even the most dangerous predators have weaknesses. They all need food, water, rest." Dr. Nancy Davis joined their conversation. As the ship's medic, she had been analyzing the samples of the creature's acidic saliva that had accidentally gotten on Tony Adams' equipment. "I've been studying this acid," she said, holding up a sealed sample container. "It's not just a weapon. It's a digestive enzyme." "What does that mean?" Bobby asked. "It means the creature doesn't just kill its prey. It partially digests it externally before eating it. The acid breaks down organic matter into nutrients the creature can absorb." Kevin's eyes widened. "That's actually a pretty efficient system. But it also means the creature has specific nutritional requirements. It can't just eat anything." Bobby nodded slowly. "And if it has specific nutritional needs, then it has metabolic limitations. No creature can survive indefinitely without the right kind of food." Their conversation was interrupted by Nick Taylor, the ship's survival expert. He had been reviewing the security footage from their encounter with the creature. "I've been watching how that thing moved," he said. "It's fast, but it follows predictable patterns. It hunts in cycles, probably based on its energy levels." "Cycles?" Nancy asked. "Yeah, periods of intense activity followed by periods of rest. Most predators work this way. They can't maintain maximum effort continuously." The 4 crew members looked at each other as the implications sank in. They were talking about the creature not as an unstoppable monster, but as a biological entity with needs and limitations. We should tell the captain, Kevin said. Tell him what? Bobby asked. That we think the galaxy's worst nightmare might be manageable? That's exactly what we should tell him, Nick replied. Because right now he's thinking about it the same way every other species has thought about it. As something to run from. They found Captain Sullivan in the science lab with Amanda Clark and Ryan Peters. The room was filled with holographic displays showing the creature's anatomy and behavior patterns. Captain, Kevin said, we need to talk about the creature. Sullivan looked up from the displays. What about it? We think it can be studied safely, Nancy said. Not up close, obviously, but from a distance. We could learn about its behavior patterns, its needs, its weaknesses. Weaknesses? Sullivan asked skeptically. Bobby stepped forward. Every living thing has weaknesses, Captain. Even that thing. It needs food, it needs rest, it has metabolic limits. The question is whether we're brave enough to find out what those limits are. Ryan Peters had been listening carefully. They're right, Captain. We've been thinking about this creature the same way the planet's previous inhabitants did. As something to fear and avoid. But what if there's another way? Amanda pulled up a new set of data. I've been analyzing the alien symbols we found in the complex. Lisa Morgan helped me decode some of them. They tell a story about the creature, about how it destroyed their civilization. And, Sullivan prompted, the aliens were incredibly advanced. They had technology we can barely understand, but they all thought about the creature the same way. They saw it as a force of nature, something that couldn't be controlled or defeated. Maybe they were right, Sullivan said. Or maybe they were limited by their own assumptions, Amanda replied. Captain, humans have a history of succeeding where others have failed. We adapt, we improvise, we find solutions that others miss. Kevin nodded. We don't just accept that something is impossible, we figure out how to make it possible. Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. What are you proposing? A careful, systematic study of the creature, Amanda said. We stay at a safe distance, we use remote sensors, we observe its behavior patterns. We treat it like a scientific problem to be solved, not a monster to be feared. And if it comes after us again? Then we'll be ready, Nick said. We'll understand how it hunts, how it thinks, how it moves. Knowledge is the best defense against any predator. Tony Adams had been listening from the doorway. Captain, I've been thinking about our encounter with that thing. My weapons were useless, but that doesn't mean all weapons would be useless. We just need to understand what we're fighting. Patricia White joined the group. I've been studying the alien technology in the complex. Their containment system was failing, but it worked for thousands of years. If we can understand how they built it, maybe we can improve on it. Sullivan looked around the room at his crew. They weren't showing fear anymore. They were showing curiosity, determination, and something else. They were showing the uniquely human trait of seeing a problem and wanting to solve it. You're all crazy, he said finally. But maybe that's what this situation needs. Crazy humans who don't know when to quit. Lisa Morgan's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I'm receiving strange signals from the planet's surface. They're not from our equipment. What kind of signals? Sullivan asked. Data transmissions. Complex ones. It's like something down there is broadcasting information across the galaxy. Amanda's eyes widened. The monitoring systems? The aliens must have left automated systems to warn other species about the creature. Which means other species know about our encounter, Ryan said. Let them know, Sullivan said, making his decision. We're going back to that planet. But this time, we're not going as explorers. We're going as problem solvers. The crew exchanged looks of excitement and determination. They were about to attempt something that no species in galactic history had ever tried. They were going to study the unstoppable monster, understand it, and find a way to defeat it, because that's what humans do. They take the impossible and make it possible. The USS Horizon returned to orbit around the planet 5 days later, but this time the ship bristled with new equipment. Patricia White had worked around the clock to modify their sensors and create specialized monitoring devices. The ship's Cargo bay now contained dozens of remote observation drones and sensor packages designed to study the creature from a safe distance. Lieutenant Gary Webb stood in the ship's tactical center, reviewing battle plans that no military academy had ever taught. As the ship's tactical specialist, he was used to planning attacks against enemy vessels, not studying the hunting patterns of galaxy-devouring monsters. "This is either brilliant or completely insane," he muttered to himself. Dr. Helen Ross joined him at the tactical display. As the ship's biochemist, she had been analyzing the samples Nancy Davis had collected from the creature's acidic secretions. "I prefer to think of it as scientifically ambitious," she said with a smile. "Any luck with the acid analysis?" Gary asked. "More than luck," Helen replied, pulling up her data on the display. "This stuff is incredibly complex. It's not just an acid, it's a cocktail of enzymes designed to break down specific types of organic matter. But here's the interesting part, it has limitations." Gary leaned forward with interest. "What kind of limitations?" "It's designed to work on the biochemistry of the planet's original inhabitants. It might not be as effective against Earth-based biology. Our proteins are structured differently." Meanwhile, Amanda Clark was in the science lab with Kevin Thompson, preparing the observation mission. They had spent the past 5 days designing a systematic approach to studying the creature. "We start with long-range sensors," she explained. "Map its movement patterns, understand its territory, figure out its daily routine." "Assuming it has a daily routine," Kevin replied. "This thing has been locked up for thousands of years. Its behavior might be completely unpredictable." "That's what we need to find out," Amanda said. "Every predator has patterns, even if they're not obvious at first." Ryan Peters was working with Bobby Chun to understand the creature's nutritional needs. "If this thing has been in stasis for millennia, it's going to be hungry," Ryan said. "Extremely hungry." "Which means it's going to be focused on finding food," Bobby added. "But what does it eat? The planet appears lifeless from our scans." "Maybe that's why the original inhabitants contained it instead of killing it," Ryan suggested. "Maybe they couldn't figure out how to kill it either." The first wave of observation drones launched 12 hours later. Patricia White had designed them to be silent and nearly invisible, using technology borrowed from their deep space exploration equipment. The drones descended toward the planet's surface while the crew watched from the safety of orbit. "Drones are in position," Lisa Morgan reported from her communications station, all systems functioning normally. The main view screen showed multiple feeds from the drone cameras. They could see the entrance to the underground complex, which now showed signs of the creature's recent activity. Large claw marks scarred the rocks around the opening, and strange patches of what looked like dried acid covered the ground. "There," Nick Taylor said, pointing at one of the camera feeds. "Movement in Sector 7. The creature emerged from the complex with the fluid grace of a born hunter. In daylight, they could see details that had been hidden in the underground chambers. Its multiple arms moved independently, each one testing the air and ground for signs of prey. Its massive head turned slowly, scanning the horizon with those glowing eyes." "It's beautiful in a terrifying way," Amanda whispered. "Beautiful and efficient?" Kevin added, "Look how it moves. Every motion has a purpose." They watched for hours as the creature explored the surface around its underground home. It moved in expanding circles, clearly searching for something. After 3 hours, it returned to the complex and disappeared underground. "Interesting," Gary said. "It's following a search pattern. Methodical, organized. Like it's looking for something specific," Nick agreed. "Or someone specific." Helen Ross had been monitoring the biochemical sensors on the drones. "I'm detecting those acidic secretions everywhere it went. It's marking territory like an animal claiming its hunting ground." The observation continued for 3 days. The creature emerged at regular intervals, always following the same basic pattern but expanding its search radius each time. It was clearly looking for the humans who had awakened it. "It remembers us," Amanda said during one of their briefing sessions. "It's not just hunting randomly, it's hunting us specifically." "That's both good and bad news," Gary replied. Good because it means we can predict its behavior. Bad because it means we're its primary target. On the fourth day of observation, something changed. The creature emerged from the complex, but instead of beginning its usual search pattern, it moved directly toward one of their hidden observation drones. How did it find the drone? Patricia asked frantically. I don't know, Lisa replied. All stealth systems are functioning normally. They watched in fascination and horror as the creature approached the drone with obvious intent. It examined the device carefully with its multiple arms, then looked directly up at the camera. For a moment, it seemed to be staring right at them through the video feed. It knows we're watching, Ryan said quietly. The creature picked up the drone and bit into it. The camera feed showed rows of massive teeth before the transmission cut to static. We just lost Drone 7, Patricia reported. But we learned something important, Gary said. That thing can detect our technology somehow. It's not just smart, it's technologically aware. Helen Ross was studying the chemical readings from the destroyed drone. I'm seeing something interesting. In the final sensor data, the creature's saliva shows traces of metals that aren't native to this planet. What does that mean? Amanda asked. It means this creature has encountered advanced technology before, recently. The implications hit the team like a physical blow. If the creature had encountered advanced technology recently, it meant there had been other visitors' planet, other species who had found the creature and tried to study it. We need to find out what happened to them, Kevin said grimly. The answer came 2 days later when their deep-range sensors detected something in orbit on the far side of the planet. It was a ship, but not from any civilization they recognized. The vessel was badly damaged, its hull torn open in several places by what looked like massive claw marks. Send a drone to investigate, Sullivan ordered. The drone's cameras revealed a ship that had clearly been attacked by the creature. Somehow, the beast had reached into orbit and destroyed a vessel that should have been safely out of range. How? Is that possible? Amanda asked. I don't know, Patricia replied, but we better figure it out fast. Inside the destroyed ship, their drone found evidence of the crew's fate. The alien beings had been partially dissolved by acidic secretions, their remains scattered throughout the vessel. But they also found something else? Recordings of the creature's attack. The recordings showed the alien crew making the same mistake the humans had initially made. They had approached the creature as an unstoppable force to be feared and avoided. When it had somehow reached their ship in orbit, they had panicked and tried to flee. They ran, Gary observed. Just like every other species has run for thousands of years. And it didn't work, Helen added. Running from this thing is not a viable strategy. Captain Sullivan studied the tactical display showing the destroyed alien ship. So what's our strategy? We can't run, we can't hide, and our weapons are ineffective? We do what humans do best, Amanda said with growing confidence. We adapt, we learn. We find a way to turn this situation to our advantage. How do we turn a galaxy-destroying monster to our advantage? Sullivan asked. Bobby Chun spoke up from the back of the room. We stop thinking of it as a monster. We start thinking of it as ingredients. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at the food specialist. He was completely serious. Every organism that consumes energy can be consumed by something else, Bobby continued. It's the most basic law of biology. Nothing is at the top of the food chain forever. You're suggesting we eat it? Sullivan asked incredulously. I'm suggesting we stop being afraid of it and start being curious about it. Fear makes you run. Curiosity makes you experiment. Amanda's eyes lit up with understanding. He's right. We've been approaching this like every other species has, with fear and respect for its power. But what if we approached it like humans approach everything else? How do humans approach everything else? Gary asked. Like it's a problem to be solved, she replied. Like it's something to be understood, studied, and ultimately controlled. The crew exchanged looks of dawning realization. They were about to attempt something no species in galactic history had ever tried. They were going to stop running from the monster and start hunting it instead. The planning phase took 2 weeks. Every department on the USS Horizon contributed to what Captain Sullivan privately called the most insane mission in human history. The ship's conference room had been converted into a war room with holographic displays showing the creature's behavior patterns. The underground complex layout and chemical analysis charts. Gary Webb stood at the center of it all, coordinating what could barely be called a military operation. The creature follows a predictable routine, he explained to the assembled team. It emerges every 6 hours, searches for exactly 43 minutes, then returns underground. We have a window of opportunity during its rest periods. Helen. Ross had been working with Bobby Chun to develop what they called the neutralization protocol. Her biochemistry expertise combined with his knowledge of food preparation had produced something unprecedented in galactic history, a way to turn the creature's own biology against it. The acidic secretions are the key, Helen explained, pointing to her analysis charts. The creature uses them to pre-digest its prey, but the enzymes can be neutralized with the right chemical combination. More than neutralized, Bobby added, with excitement. When we introduce these compounds into the creature's system, the enzymes will start breaking down the creature's own tissues instead of its prey. Dr. Nancy Davis had been studying the creature's anatomy from the detailed scans their drones had collected. The creature has 3 primary nervous system clusters, she said. If we can disrupt all 3 simultaneously, it will lose coordination between its multiple limbs. Patricia White had been modifying their equipment for the final assault. The engineering bay was filled with devices that looked like nothing in any standard manual. I've created what I call chemical delivery systems, she said. Basically, we're turning our exploration tools into the galaxy's most sophisticated cooking equipment. Kevin Thompson had identified the creature's behavioral weak points. It's been in isolation for thousands of years, he explained. It's hunting. Instincts are perfect, but it has no experience with coordinated group tactics. It expects its prey to run, not fight back systematically. Nick Taylor had mapped every inch of the underground complex using data from their surveillance drones. We know exactly where it rests, where it stores its food, and where it's most vulnerable. The key is getting there without triggering its hunting response. Ryan Peters had made perhaps the most important discovery of all. The creature isn't just intelligent, he said. It's overconfident. Thousands of years of being the apex predator have made it assume that nothing can threaten it. That assumption is going to be its downfall. Captain Sullivan listened to each report with growing amazement. His crew wasn't just planning to survive an encounter with the galaxy's most feared predator. They were planning to cook it. Are we really doing this? He asked. We're really doing this, Amanda Clark replied. The creature has been the galaxy's nightmare for millennia, because everyone who encountered it tried to fight it on its terms. We're going to fight it on our terms. The mission began at dawn on the planet's surface. The creature was in its rest phase, deep underground in the chamber where they had first encountered it. The human team moved silently through the complex, their equipment carefully designed to avoid detection. Steve Martinez led the infiltration team, moving like ghosts through the crystalline corridors. Tony Adams carried the neutralization devices, while Patricia White monitored their stealth systems. Lisa Morgan stayed at the surface, coordinating communications with the ship. They reached the sealed chamber where the creature rested. Through their enhanced sensors, they could see it lying motionless on the crystal platform, its multiple arms folded against its massive body. It looked peaceful, almost innocent in sleep. Remember, Gary whispered through their communication system, this thing has killed entire civilizations. We're not here to feel sorry for it. Helen Ross began setting up her chemical delivery system in the chamber's air circulation network. The ancient alien ventilation system was still functional, and she could use it to introduce her neutralizing compounds into the creature's environment. Compounds in place, she reported quietly, beginning atmospheric saturation. The process took an hour. Slowly, carefully, they filled the chamber with chemicals designed to counteract the creature's acidic defenses. When the creature eventually woke and began secreting its digestive enzymes, those enzymes would turn against its own Bobby Chun was setting up what he called his field kitchen in a chamber adjacent to the creature's resting place. His equipment looked like a bizarre combination of laboratory apparatus and cooking gear, because that's exactly what it was. Preparation stations ready, he reported. Standing by for ingredient delivery. Nancy Davis monitored the creatures. Vital signs through their medical sensors. Respiratory rate is increasing, she said. I think it's starting to wake up. The creature's eyes opened slowly, glowing in the darkness of the chamber. It raised its massive head and tested the air with its forked tongue. Something was different, but it couldn't identify what. Kevin Thompson watched the creature's behavior through their hidden cameras. It knows something is wrong, but it can't figure out what. Confusion is good for us. The creature stood up slowly, its multiple arms moving independently as it searched for threats. It took a step toward the chamber's exit, then stopped. The chemical compounds in the air were beginning to affect its nervous system. Neutralization is working, Helen reported. The creature's coordination is becoming impaired. Tony Adams moved into position with the containment equipment. Their plan required the creature to be alive but immobilized when Bobby began his work. Killing it outright might damage the meat. The creature tried to roar, but the sound came out wrong, distorted by the chemical interference with its nervous system. It stumbled forward, its massive frame no longer moving with predatory grace. Now, Gary commanded. The team moved with precision that would have impressed any military unit. They deployed containment fields that Patricia had designed to hold the creature in place while keeping it alive. Neural inhibitors that Nancy had developed prevented it from using its acidic secretions effectively. For the first time in galactic history, the creature known as the Devourer was completely helpless. Containment successful, Steve reported. Target is secured and ready for processing. Bobby Chun approached the immobilized creature with the confidence of a master chef examining premium ingredients. Beautiful, he said appreciatively. Just beautiful. This is going to be the finest meal in galactic history. The creature's eyes followed Bobby as he moved around its trapped form. There was intelligence there, and perhaps for the first time. In its existence, fear, it had never been prey before. Don't worry, Bobby said to the creature conversationally. I'm going to treat you with the respect you deserve. You're going to be delicious. Helen Ross began the final phase of the neutralization process, introducing compounds that would break down the creature's cellular structure. While preserving the nutritional value of its tissues, it was essentially cooking the creature from the inside out. Amanda Clark recorded everything for scientific posterity. Mission log, Day 1 of Operation Dinner Bell. The creature designated as the Devourer has been successfully captured and neutralized. Preliminary processing has begun. The creature tried one last time to break free, but its strength was gone. The chemicals in its system had turned its own biology against it. Its powerful muscles became tender meat. Its armored hide became manageable portions. Processing complete, Bobby announced several hours later. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served. The team gathered around tables that Bobby had set up in the chamber. The smell of properly cooked meat filled the air, a smell that spoke of victory and human ingenuity. Captain Sullivan's voice came through their communicators. How does it taste? Steve Martinez took the first bite, chewed thoughtfully, and smiled. Like chicken, he said. Really, really good chicken. The creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia had become humanity's dinner, and it was delicious. The feast lasted 3 days. Bobby Chun had prepared the creature in 17 different ways, each one more delicious than the last. The crew of the USS Horizon sat in the underground chamber where the galaxy's greatest nightmare had once lived, sharing meals and stories while the ancient alien monitoring systems recorded everything in stunned electronic silence. I still can't believe we actually did it, Amanda Clark said, taking another bite of what Bobby called Devour Wellington. The meat was tender and rich, with a flavor unlike anything she had ever tasted. Captain Sullivan had joined the landing party for the final day of their celebration. He sat at the head of the table that Bobby had constructed from salvaged alien materials, raising his cup in a toast. "To the most successful scientific expedition in human history," he said, "and to the best meal I've ever eaten." The crew laughed and cheered, their voices echoing through chambers that had once housed the galaxy's darkest legend. Patricia White had rigged lighting systems throughout the complex, transforming the frightening alien architecture into something almost festive. Dr. Helen Ross was documenting the creature's nutritional properties for scientific records. "The protein content is extraordinary," she reported between bites. "This single creature could have fed a small colony for months." "Too bad there's only one of them," Ryan Peters said. "Actually," Amanda said, consulting her scanner, "remember those other biological signatures I detected? I've been monitoring them during our stay here. There are at least 12 more creatures in deeper parts of the complex." The table fell silent for a moment, then Gary Webb started laughing. 12 more? That's enough to feed half the galaxy. "The galaxy's food shortage problems just got solved," Kevin Thompson added, "assuming we can figure out how to farm them." Bobby Chin's eyes lit up with culinary excitement. "Different creatures, different flavors. We could create an entire cuisine based on apex predator preparation." Nick Taylor was studying the ancient alien records that Lisa Morgan had been translating throughout their stay. According to these records, the original inhabitants of this planet spent thousands of years trying to find a way to kill these creatures. They never thought to eat them. "Their loss," Tony Adams said, finishing his portion of what Bobby had dubbed terror tacos. "This is the best meat I've ever had." Captain Sullivan was thinking about the larger implications. "We need to contact Earth Command. This discovery changes everything we know about galactic power structures." Lisa Morgan had been monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The ancient alien monitoring systems had been broadcasting news of their success to every corner of known space. "Captain, we're receiving messages from dozens of different species. Word is spreading fast." "What kind of messages?" Sullivan asked. "Mostly disbelief," Lisa replied, "but also requests for information. Several species are asking how we did it." Dr. Nancy Davis had been analyzing the crew's health since they started eating the creature. "No negative effects from consuming the meat," she reported. "In fact, several crew members are showing improved strength and energy levels." "The creature's biology is incredibly efficient," Helen added. "Eating it might actually make us stronger." Amanda was recording her final scientific observations. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond nutrition. For millennia, this creature and others like it have shaped galactic civilization through fear. Entire species have organized their societies around avoiding these things. "And now their dinner," Bobby said proudly. Ryan Peters was studying the creature's remains with professional interest. "The bone structure is fascinating. Incredibly strong, but surprisingly light. These bones could have industrial applications." "The hide could be used for armor," Coney suggested. "If it could protect the creature from energy weapons, it could protect our ships." Patricia White was examining the creature's natural technology. "Its sensory organs are more advanced than our best scanners. We could learn a lot from studying how they work." Captain Sullivan made his decision. "We're not leaving this planet. Not yet. We're going to study every one of these creatures, learn everything we can from them, and figure out how to use this knowledge to benefit humanity." "And eat them all," Bobby added cheerfully. "And eat them all," Sullivan agreed with a smile. The celebration continued into the night, but the crew was already planning their next moves. They would need specialized equipment to hunt the remaining creatures, better facilities for processing and preservation, and a way to share their discovery with the rest of humanity. "We should open a restaurant," Gary suggested jokingly. "The only place in the galaxy where you can eat your nightmares." "That's not actually a bad idea," Amanda said thoughtfully. "Imagine the psychological impact. Species that have lived in fear of these creatures for thousands of years, watching humans casually eat them for dinner." Lisa's communication equipment chimed with an incoming message. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Sullivan listened to the message through his personal communicator. His expression grew serious, then amazed, then proud. Earth Command has received reports of our activities from multiple alien sources. They're sending a fleet to support our operations here. How big a fleet? Steve Martinez asked. Big enough to establish a permanent research station and a processing facility, and apparently the first interstellar restaurant franchise. The crew burst into laughter and applause. They had come to this planet as explorers and had ended up as the galaxy's most successful monster hunters and chefs. Over the following months, the story of their achievements spread throughout the galaxy. The creatures that had once been whispered about in fear became known by a new name, human delicacies. Species that had organized their entire civilizations around avoiding these monsters began asking humanity for cooking tips. The phrase, "they turned it into a feast," became a galactic idiom for the impossible made possible, for finding opportunity in the face of overwhelming danger. Humanity's reputation as a species that didn't know when to quit became humanity's reputation as a species that could turn any problem into a solution. The restaurant that Gary had jokingly suggested became reality. The Devourer's Table opened. On 17 different worlds, serving meals prepared from creatures that had once terrorized the galaxy. The waiting lists were years long. Bobby Chun became the most famous chef in galactic history. His cookbook, Cooking the Uncookable, A Guide to Apex Predator Cuisine, became a bestseller across hundreds of species. Amanda Clark's scientific reports revolutionized xenobiology, showing that even the most dangerous life forms could be understood and managed with the right approach, but perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as just another curious species exploring the stars. They were seen as the species that looked at the universe's greatest terrors and asked, "How does it taste?" The monsters that had once ruled through fear now served as dinner, and humanity had gained something more valuable than any territory or resource. They had gained the respect and wonder of an entire galaxy. The feast was over, but the legend had just begun. Across the stars, beings who had once cowered in darkness now looked up at the night sky and thought of the humans, who had turned their nightmares into nourishment. They had run from the monster. Humans had turned it into a feast. And the galaxy would never be the same.